teachers of Reddit, what is your best read the note to the class story? My then fiancé was a high school math teacher. One day she thought she saw a note being passed, but she wasn't sure, so she waited. Then she thought she saw it again. Finally she saw it, walked over, and took it. It was a wedding card, signed by half of the class before she took it. She cried. Not really a note, but when I was teaching college classes, I caught two of the girls whispering, so I told them if you're going to tell secrets, you need to share with the rest of the class. I taught preschool before this. She looked right at me, and said, without the slightest embarrassment, I was just telling her that I think you have a cute butt. I was teaching a communications class, and we were discussing communications in the workplace, and I looked down at the textbook. After seeing what the next section was, I said okay, moving on to the next section, titled Sexual Harassment. Everyone roared with laughter. A couple weeks later, at a baseball game paid for by the school, she came onto me really hard, with my fiancé right there. Not a teacher, but when I was in high school, I started a note from the back row of the class, which was passed and read by nearly everyone in the class. The teacher grabbed it as it went past him, when there was only 3 people left who hasn't read it. I think he was going to read it out to the class, but he looked at it before he read it. All the note said was that the zip on his pants was down. With all respect to him, he calmly zipped up and continued teaching. In health class, we were talking about boners and how they fill up with blood. My cousin took a piece of paper and wrote your peenie is filled with blood and threw it at some popular kid. The teacher picked it up and you can see him die inside because of the immaturity of 8th graders and how he has to teach them for a career. One day in middle school right around when the Nintendo Wii came out, you could add other friends online for certain compatible online Wii games by sharing a serial code of like 16 numbers or something around there. Sitting in the back of our 7th period science class, 3 of my friends and I started to exchange and write down our Wii serial codes on a small piece of paper. We'd pass it down and share it as we passed it and copy them in our notebooks. Our teacher pauses his lecture as he looks at us. He just gets up from the front of the class, walked to our row where the 4 of us he sat, put his hand out to my buddy for the paper with all of our serial codes on and takes a moment to glance at it only to see a matrix of random numbers followed by the first letter of our names. He then glances up at us and then to my buddy with the most dumbfounded stare, squints, and asked, is this some kind of joke? 'Cause I'm clueless on this one. My buddy that had to explain ourselves saved us all the embarrassment and said I'll explain after class as he blushed. Luckily our teacher was a really cool dude and was fine with that answer and told us to just put it away. We told him after class and he understood but also said he was expecting some sort of elaborate code that we were encrypting messages in haha. Student not a teacher. In maybe the 4th or 5th grade a kid is trying to pass me a note and is caught by the teacher. I wasn't paying attention to where it came from, I only noticed when it was about to be handed to me. She makes him read the note in front of the class. He reads the note and it says you wanna be my boyfriend. I like the way your booty moves when you walk. I overreacted and say, I'm not gay. And the boy says I didn't write that it came from Tasha. Everyone laughs and she and I are both extremely embarrassed. After class I go to talk to her at the locker and she says yeah I wrote it but I don't like you like that anymore. Not a teacher. Someone in my class had a cold and wiped their snot into a scrap piece of paper, as they didn't have a tissue. They then scrunched it up and left it on the side of their desk. Teacher saw this, thought it was a note and grabbed the paper, going through the usual fanfare of the importance not passing notes around. The look on her face when she opened it was priceless. Student, not the teacher. In my college thermodynamics class the professor said that he didn't care if we got a text message in class, however he did care if we had our ringers on. So his rule was that if you got a text message and your phone went off loud enough for the whole room to hear it, you had two options. You could either read the text out loud to the whole class, or you could bring in donuts for everyone at the next class. There were about 20 of us. Of course everyone keeps their phones on silent, so it never happens. Until smack dab in the middle of one of the exams, when the professor's phone gets a text message and rings out loud and clear in the middle of the exam. Professor freezes, takes one look at his phone as we all start giggling, and says, "Guess I'm bringing you guys all donuts on Wednesday." They were delicious.